welcome back to part 2 of this engine replacement on the '02 Chevy Trailblazer. I hope you enjoyed part 1 where we removed it, and hope you got some tips and tricks if you're doing it at home by yourself. This is the new, well, new to us, junkyard engine that we got. Currently I've already swapped out the valve cover gasket. It looked like it was leaking. So I just went ahead and changed it because obviously it could be done in the car, but it's easier out here for sure. Then these coolant lines, if you remember, we broke them. I got a new one here and the new smaller elbow. Had to swap out the exhaust manifold because they broke the studs on this and I just didn't feel like messing with it. And I'm gonna just warn you, there was 2 exhaust bolts for the manifold that were already broke when I took off the old manifold, so I had to do some welding to get those off. So if you have that, be prepared if you mess with the manifold. But as far as I can tell, everything is similar. The oil pan is identical. They said it might be different. I don't know if it may be just a different year or something, but the oil pan's identical. Everything on the front's identical, obviously, and the fuel rail is actually different. The one that came with this used engine only had one. It did not have a return or a regulator on it, so you'll definitely have to swap that and the injectors out just to be safe. But as far as everything else, I'm pretty sure it's all the same. I left the intake off. I was going to put it back on because we could work around it, but I'm just going to leave it off to make it easier. And I also kept all the coils out just so I don't break another coil. It was only this one that I was worried about, but I had them all out anyway, so I'm like, I'll just put them back in later. So, but I got the rear diff put back on. I got the starter put back on. I got everything I pretty much need to get this thing back in here. So apologies for that noise. The chain's just popping. So we are gonna drop this thing in right quick. This is gonna be a quicker video because, you know, it's not much different than the first video. So I just wanted to show y'all it getting installed and running good. So hopefully it does that. So I'm gonna drop this thing in nice and easy, and then we'll lift it up and I'll show you some videos throughout. And like I said, it's gonna be kind of some quick snippets of it. But we're gonna get this thing dropped in here and lift it up, and I'll be right back. All right, quick update. Got the engine set down in there. I'll put the motor mounts back on. Engine mounts, whatever you want to call them. I just got these nuts. I got the bolts completely tightened. I got these nuts just loosely on there so it'll stay. So now I'm gonna get this hoist out of the way, and I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna try to get the transmission mounted. So I'll be right back when I get it up in the air. Okay, so I got the car up on the lift again. I went ahead and got 4 bolts started down here. I did have to put one of my jacks right here and just kind of lift up to get it straightened out, but then it basically, I got lucky and it popped right in. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you got to fight it for an hour to get it to come out, try to pop in. So I'm gonna start doing all this underneath stuff, but first you definitely want to check this because it can happen. There's that coolant line that runs from the driver's side of the engine around the back of the engine and then goes into the heater core. And there's a bracket on it that bolts to the transmission bolts up top, and you can get that pinched in between the engine and transmission. It's hard to see up here, but just go up there and make sure that thing's still moving around freely with these bolts snug. So I'm going to check that before I go any further, and then I'm going to come back down here and I'm going to start putting everything back together, which will require removing this again, putting a transmission jack here and whatnot. But I'm gonna get all this underneath stuff done, and then I'm gonna start going up top. So I'll be right back. Just a little update here. Got the engine all set in, bolted up. Every bolt's in the transmission. Those top 2 bolts are a little tricky. You can, with the intake off, you can get around to this one on the driver's side and get it through. It's just getting the bolt through that bracket for the coolant and then getting it into the transmission. It's a little tricky, but you can get it. Use a magnet if you need to or whatever. But I got the torque converter bolts in. Make sure you get brand new torque converter bolts because those are torque to yield bolts. Once they're used, they can't be used again. I know people do it, and you know, it may or may not hold up. It's just not worth it. They're like $10, I think, for a set of them. So get a new set of them. So anyway, I got that on. I'm going to jack this transmission back up and get this mount back on. Never put the exhaust on with the transmission laying down like this. Sometimes it might work fine. I've had an issue back when I was younger, believe it or not, that I went to put it on and I was fighting it and I forgot that I didn't have the transmission jacked up, and I ended up breaking the exhaust, and then I had to go get it welded, and it was just a big ordeal. So just get everything straight and level before you start putting stuff like that back on. So I'm gonna get this back on. Make sure it's a good time right now to check your transmission mount. If you can move it and it's really loose or anything, just go ahead and change it, because you can get to it right now, 2 bolts. But yeah, I'm gonna get this bolted up. You got your 2 transmission mount bolts, then you got your 4 bolts that go through, and then there's 4 small bolts that hold this together. Then we'll put this back on too. And we will also, like I said, get the exhaust on. That's just 3 nuts. And then we'll put this drive shaft back on. And we should be pretty much all but done here. So we'll go up top and we'll start buttoning everything up there. I will be right back. All right, I got everything underneath pretty much done as far as I can remember. Obviously we'll go through and check everything when we're done. But before I get down or up top, I'm gonna go ahead and put all this stuff back together here. And I figured I'd show y'all some of the process of putting this together. I know I just kind of told y'all what to do and then just did it and it was off. But I figured I'd show y'all a little bit of the process. That way y'all get a better understanding of it. So first thing we're gonna do is put this shock back. Make sure you have these tight, because that's the whole reason we had to take this off. So take those nuts there and we will feed that there first. Take this big nut off. You probably want to, if I remember right, you got to put it on there first, otherwise it won't go on up into those holes. And I also got that bolt loose right here, this bolt and nut. If you don't have it loose, it's probably going to line right back up where it belongs, but I loosened it just to make it a little easier on me. So we'll go ahead and just lightly tighten, just put this nut on, just a couple threads, and it's not going to go up in there yet because all this is pulled down. So we'll just set these nuts to the side for now. So our next step, get this bolt. Now this is the bolt and nut that holds your upper control arm or upper ball joint to your upper control arm. And of course, now's a good time. You got all this off. Check for wear and stuff. Looks like these have been replaced at some point. They're definitely not original, or they would not be this tight. And I thought maybe I'd be able to lift it, but sometimes these things are easy. Sometimes you got to really work them. So we will just get our transmission jack here. Be careful when you're doing this, when you're on a stand or anything, lift. Make sure you're not lifting the car up and you're just pushing, compressing this stuff. Just as you're lifting this up, I don't know if y'all can see that or not, but make sure you're lining those holes up for the strut. And there's that. Now that we got that, we can bring this control arm in here. Really hope y'all can see that. I got this camera mounted to my chest right now. Sometimes you got to split these control arms open a little bit to get it to fit on there. Get that all the way in there. I have to tap this bolt through just to get it in its right groove. All right, we got that. We can go ahead and let the pressure off of this. Actually, before we let the pressure, get these the upper strut nuts. You can fish your hand in there. At least get one if you can. I'm gonna put both because you get to them. That way that doesn't come back down, do anything crazy. So now we can get that out of the way. Got a little ahead of myself there. I pulled that back off. We obviously probably want to put the CV axles in. Sometimes I get a little carried away and forget about stuff. So the CV axles on this one, they're identical for either side. Just keep that in mind. And the CV axles, they have a lock clip on them right there. All this grease is from that transfer case, shift module, whatever you want to call it. So we're gonna slide that in there. And what that C-clip does on the CV axle is it just kind of snaps into place inside this module here. Once we find the sweet spot. All right, sorry guys, had to fight that in. I finally got it to clip in. Make sure this should be flush with this. There shouldn't be barely a little bit of fingertip of gap. It should go all the way in. So once you get that, then this will go kind of turn it a little bit. And you just want to get it started in the hole on the hub. All right, once you get it in the hub there, it should pretty much slide right in. We will go ahead and get that nut started. As you can see, I just like to get all the nuts on, unless it's something I have to tighten to move forward. I like to get them all on and then tighten them at the end. That way if there is something I need to go back and fix or anything, I don't have to loosen everything. So now that we got that on, we can put this control arm back on. And now we can get this out of the way. And now we got access to everything. I always put the tie rod in on last. That way I can move this around. And then this goes right over here. I believe it's supposed to clip on. There's a couple spots. ABS goes right there. And then I took that bolt loose for the brake line just to give me some play. So that's a 10mm bolt right there. And it's big. This is like 34, I think, 35. So make sure you get everything tightened to the specifications, or if you don't have all those, just get it really tight. It's really good to look up all the specs for it and make sure you're getting everything tightened properly. So that is basically it, and it's the same for both sides putting this stuff together. You'll want to make sure and get the two top strut nuts, the lower one, this one for the strut if you loosened it, axle nut, control arm bolt and nut, and I think that's all I took loose over here, and then this bolt. So get all that tightened up, and I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll be up top and we'll be getting over halfway finished with this and be done with it. All right, I got all the wheel stuff put together. I left the tires off so I could keep this thing a little bit lower. Just makes it easier to put on. So now the next step is just going to be slowly piecing everything back together up here. Obviously, you know, put your dipsticks back where they belong. That block off plate, this engine had an EGR on it, but we're blocking it off because this model, specific model, did not have one. This used engine for that one did. So, but just slowly and meticulously plugging all the connectors back in, getting those transmission lines snapped back into that bracket as best as possible. The heater hoses, I'm waiting on one to come in right now as we speak. The little one, there's one that goes from there. The one on the left goes from there to the pipe right here at the engine. This one is your long hose that goes behind the engine and comes around to the other side and hooks up right here with the hose clamp. So I'm waiting on that one. So I'm gonna get my coils back in. I'm gonna get all these dipstick stuff back in, trying to get everything on this side, and then I'm gonna work on this side down here. Remember, we had all our grounds down here, all these 3 bolts holding the brackets. Get that out of the way. And just slowly piecing everything back together. This is the part where you want to take your time, because you don't want to mess up and forget something and have to pull half the engine apart to put it back together. So just take your time, make sure everything's connected down here. Put the intake on last over here. You know, make sure you have your hose put in, all these connectors where they need to be, other than the ones for the intake, obviously. And if you didn't clean the surface off of this, you'll have to clean that off. I did it while it was out of the car, so much easier. So make sure all your wires are running the right spot. Just a meticulous thing. Just take your time. It's always the little things that end up costing you the most, so make sure and take your time on it and button all that up. So I'm gonna button all that up, and I'll be back with another update here in a second. We got the intake on, some of the wiring harness down there. You just got to really pay attention. It's gonna be impossible for me to show you, but there's 3 or 4 ground wires that go onto 3 sets of bolts, and there's a bracket down there. You got your 2 knock sensors down there, your crankshaft position sensor, the starter signal wire. You just got to take your time and run all that through. Just try to use memory. Look at this video if you need to from when I pulled it apart. I may have showed it in the first video, I can't remember. It's just a really hard spot to me. I'm almost impossible to see until you're actually under there doing it. So just take your time with it. I'm gonna keep pressing along. I just wanted to show you the intake on. I'm gonna just slowly work my way here over and then try to wrap this thing up. Okay, I got some more stuff on. Got the AC line put on, power steering pump back on, alternator, AC compressor, all that stuff. It's pretty simple stuff there. It's just bolting it all back on. Let's see, what else did I do? I got, I think, every wire plugged in. Obviously there'll be some more double check other than the air cleaner. I'm going to throw the air cleaner on here in just a second, and a couple things here for the hood and whatnot, and the battery tray. So, but now I am going to start putting this front end back together, put the radiator and the condenser in. Make sure when you put these in, because these always like to pop out, make sure that you put those back in their spots. Clean this out a little bit. I'm gonna get the blower and blow that out. And so yeah, this is coming along nicely. I'm just gonna keep plugging away, just giving y'all some updates as I go along. I'm gonna put all this stuff back in, and then we'll be here for the next step. All right, got most of it buttoned up. Still got to put the hood on and put the battery on, but I got the hose, or the upper radiator hose, air filter box, all this other stuff on. This was pretty simple. If you need any advice on where some bolts are or anywhere, feel free to check back in my part 1 video for this. And also, if you comment, I'll try to respond as much as I can. I don't do it as good as I should, but I'm stay pretty busy. So I got to put the battery on, the hood on, and still have to charge the AC, but I'm gonna wait on that until we know this thing runs good. I don't want to waste my time. And then, oh, I still got to put the lower radiator hose on too. I got to get this thing back up in the air, and then that bracket right here, little angle bracket, once I get the battery on or whatever. So, but yeah, it's coming along nicely, going smooth so far. All right, I got everything buttoned up except for the hood. I'll put that on in just a second. I wanted to show y'all this really quick because I'd say probably 90% of all cooling systems these days especially, they almost require a vacuum fill type deal, so you don't get no airlock in the engine, get big air bubbles, and have overheating problems when you're putting new coolant in. So I got this Mighty Vac one. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. It's a quality one. It probably runs a couple $100, I think, but it works great. It's got some really good quality stuff. And then I got this from there. They have an adapter kit that's got all kinds of different adapters. You'll want to get that. Otherwise, this is all that comes with this, which works, but it's not that great. So all you do to do this, and this assures you don't ever have to bleed it or nothing. When this is full, this is full. You may have to top it off just a smidge, but that's about all you'll ever have to do with this. So we'll put the cap that fits it on it. Then it's got this this bridge of different couplings. So that's just a quick connect deal there. So we'll put the gauge where it says gauge. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's got a gauge, and then we'll take one of these air hoses and we'll put that where it says vacuum pressure, and then we'll hook this up. Now, when I hook this up to air, it's gonna start hissing and going crazy, so I apologize for the noise. Here's your warning right now to turn down your volume if you have it up too loud. So you'll need some shop air. You'll need some decent shop air. You're not gonna want some tiny little tank, or else it'll take longer. I suppose it probably would do it, but I want to say it might have required, yeah, 90 to 120 psi is what it requires. So you hook this up, make sure this is closed. This is where you put the coolant in once you get the vacuum pulled. And basically, before I hook this up, it's gonna pull a vacuum down, usually around 20. Anything under 20 and you probably got a leak somewhere. Depends on the system. Some of them might not be. Usually it gets 20, 22, something like that, and then it'll hold right there. Sorry for the delay, had a phone call. So basically what I was saying though is when we hook this up, it's going to be noisy, but you want it to hang around about 20, 21, 22-ish, somewhere around there. Depending on the system, it'll hold a vacuum there. And you want it to hold steady for, you know, at least 2-3 minutes. And I've had these things hold steady for hours sitting here. So I mean, any leak down is a sign either something's on your tool is leaking or something in the system is most likely leaking. It could be a small leak. And also, once you get this vacuum test done, do not assume that that means that there's no leaks whatsoever. You always want to perform a pressure test when you're done to make sure, because sometimes when you pull a vacuum on everything, it squeezes it down, and sometimes that'll seal up a leak. I've had it happen before. That's why I'm telling you this. So once you get done vacuum, the vacuum, it's a good test for a big leak, you know, a huge noticeable leak. But the really small leaks, it can be kind of hard because you don't know when it's pulling a vacuum if it's pinching something off and sealing it. But a pressure test, 9 times out of 10 is going to find the leak for you. It'll push it right out of wherever it's leaking from. So just keep that in mind. This is not a 100% leak tester. This is just to pull the air out and put coolant in. So I'm going to hook this up and kind of give you all a tip. Just make sure, one more warning, turn your volume down. This could be loud. And as we can see, it is slowly going up, and it'll take a minute or so to get where it needs to be. If your gauge is not moving at all, or it's, you know, stuck below 5 still after a few seconds, you probably got a big leak somewhere. So look around, make sure you hooked up all your hoses, got everything tight and whatnot. And some cars, it'll pull a vacuum extremely fast. Sometimes it's slow. This is a decent speed. This is pretty much normal. So okay, I got it to pull as much vacuum as it could. The one good sign of it's pulling a good vacuum is you'll see your upper and lower hoses. Some of the smaller hoses won't do this, but the big hoses, you'll see them collapse like this because they're holding the vacuum. All the air sucked out of them. So I said that they normally get over a little over 20. This one, I pulled it. I actually fast forwarded the video for you so you wouldn't have to sit here in misery and watch it. But this one pulled only 18, just right under 18, but it wouldn't pull anymore, but it's not dropping it. I mean, it's been sitting here for 5 minutes and it hasn't moved an inch. So maybe, yeah, I don't deal with a whole lot of inline engines. I mean, they don't really make them much anymore except 4 cylinders, but maybe this inline's a little bit smaller system, so it doesn't take as much vacuum or whatever. I'm not going to try to explain science because I'm not a scientist. So the next step is going to be to add some coolant. So there's another hose in here, and the one downfall I do say about this one is it takes a while to suck the coolant in on this one. I have a cheaper one from Harbor Freight, and it's not that great. The attachments aren't phenomenal, but it will push that coolant in there fast. But I just like this one for its quality and stuff. So you hook the coolant fill hose to this part, the little valve that you push open and close, and then we'll grab some coolant. Got some coolant. So what you do is you stick this in here. You want to make sure and keep this submerged while you're in coolant, while you're filling it up, because if you let air get in it, then you could get airlock and whatever. But once you get it in there, there'll be a little air, but that's not enough to matter. So you just push this in and it starts doing its thing. And like I said, it's slow. I want to say this is a 2-gallon system. I could be wrong, but while this is doing that and filling up, I'm gonna get the hood on and I'm gonna get ready to start this thing. I think that's about all I got left. So, oh, we got to put some oil in it. Do not forget to put your oil in it. And I'll be back. I'll let you know if it's 5 or 6 quarts on this. I can't remember. All right, got the gauge down at 0 now, so we can pull this. I always like to pull this out and then let the rest of this drain in. If it'll, sometimes it's too full and it won't go in. It just makes it easier to get that line empty. So now we can take that out. It's an excellent tool to have, guys, if you're working on your cars and girls. It's a great tool to have. And like I said, Harbor Freight's got a cheap version. It works great. It's just not, the quality of it's not the greatest. Has some leaks, and it doesn't attach to any of these, at least the one I got. It don't have screw-on fittings like this and whatnot. So I just noticed that one. So I'm gonna have to get me a new one. So anyway, we'll set that stuff there for now because we are just about ready to start this thing. I already put the oil in, the capacity for this one, and it looks like the capacity for all of them, but don't take my word for it. Always check the, the owner's manual or whatever, but it's 6.97 quarts, so just shy of 7 quarts is what this thing takes. So, and like I said, once you get it all the vacuum out, you'll still have a little bit to put in, not much, so we're almost there. So, but it will be completely vacuum sealed, or there won't be no airlock. That's what I meant to say there. So we are ready to start this thing. I'm gonna leave the cap off and then I'll top it off whenever I get. Always make sure the oil's good. You want to check your oil before you start it. Make sure at least there's some on the stick anyway. And I know that stick was clean, so if you don't know if it was clean or not, wipe it off and then check again. Power steering fluid, a little bit on the stick. And I know the transmission fluid's good. I already checked it. So first, when you go to start a car, especially a junkyard engine or anything that you've taken a bunch of stuff apart, you want to make sure and prime the fuel system up by turning the key on but not starting it. It's a little tight squeeze in here. So I'm gonna turn the key on, and don't mind the GM clicking. Anybody that's got an older GM, they know what that is. So we'll let it sit there for a few seconds, take the key out, then we'll put it on. Just a couple times to prime the fuel up, and then we'll turn it back on and go check for leaks. And usually fuel leaks are gonna be extremely apparent. You'll be able to smell them pretty quick, and as much pressure that comes through the line, it's gonna spray out and stuff. So I don't see anything dripping down or leaking. So we are gonna go ahead and start this thing up. Let me open my door right quick. Get a little ventilation in here. And there goes the clicking, it stopped. That is a blend door actuator, or it's one of the actuators for the HVAC system. It's clicking. GM has never been able to get their, sorry for that noise. Well, GM has never been able to get their act together when it comes to those actuators for whatever reason. And it don't matter what brand you buy, they all do the same thing. So I'm gonna roll this window down so I can have a little more room to breathe here. Well, now when you start this thing, you shouldn't have to give it any gas or anything like that. It may take a little bit to start. This one's almost on dead empty, the tank is, so it may have a hard time starting actually. But and when it starts up, don't be afraid if it makes any kind of small ticking noises or rattling or anything like that, because everything's got to build up pressure. There's no telling how long this junkyard engine sat. So it'll prime up. Now, if it doesn't go away within, 30 minutes or so, then yeah, you might have a problem. And don't be afraid if it runs a little rough at first, because it's got to get everything warmed up and pressurized and all that stuff. So we're going to turn this over and see what happens. And it is alive. This one didn't make the first hit. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to back up a little bit because I don't know if y'all can hear me or not. Hardly any smoke out of the exhaust. It didn't make the first noise. It had a little rough running, but that's normal when you're first starting them up. Now it's smoothed out. No more ticking. The old engine, I wish I could have got a video of that before I tore it down for you, but it was ticking. It sounded like the whole front cover was about to come apart. So it is running good. All we lack is a test drive, topping some fluids off and checking, making sure there's no leaks or anything, and we should be good to go. So I greatly appreciate you hanging around and watching my videos. If you haven't yet, make sure and click that button on the bottom of the screen to subscribe. I don't know if it's here, there, wherever. And you can turn the bell notification on to get any notifications when I have new videos. I've been a little slack, I'm not gonna lie. It's been a minute since I put some videos, but I'm gonna try harder to put some more videos out because y'all seem to like some of my older ones. So, and I'm gonna try to get a little more detailed on some other ones and just give y'all some tips and tricks from what I've learned over the years. So thank you for watching. Hope y'all have a great rest of your day, and we will see you on the next one.